Welcome to Kingdom Authority with James Alford, your source for insight on spiritual warfare, discernment, and the power of God. Be prepared for your eyes to be opened like never before and walk in the power of God's kingdom. Here is your host, James Alford.
Hello, this is James Alford with the Kingdom Authority broadcast. I tell you, boy, this whole AI thing is, it's kind of scary. And I've been talking with my good friend, Aman Evans here, about how the devil is going to use AI to bring a lot of destruction to the people of God, to the church. Yeah. I've even seen here recently, somebody had a service and the AI, they used the Chat GPT bot to actually do a church service. And they said the church was packed out. Now, I've been in church ministry for years, and it's hard to pack a whole big church out for an event or whatever. Some people can do it. They may be more with them, but it's really hard to pack a place out. But Chat GPT on his very first sermon was able to pack out a church, and minister and do all these things, and people were interested, and and I look at that and I'm like, man, this is some darkness going on, and so today I wanted to talk deeply about it, and talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and man's desire, I think personally, to create his own God. We see in Scripture, of course, that God created man and woman. He created Adam and Eve in his own likeness. But then the Bible says that when Adam conceived, his child was created in his own likeness and Adam's likeness.
Right.
And so the man's seed comes out, and that's why you hear people saying, oh, your son looks just like you.
Yeah.
Or your daughter looks just like you or whatever. But it's darker when we are trying to really come up with our own creation, not the creation dynamic that God has given us to birth children, to be man and woman coming together and birthing children, but a creation dynamic that's wholly our own, which is the development of artificial intelligence. So we want to be God. And so what do you think about that?
We absolutely, we want to create our own. We want our own creation unique to human beings that God, quote unquote, has nothing to do with. And I'd say quote unquote has nothing to do with, because one of my favorite riddles is like, okay, God and man are in a laboratory, and it's like, I'm gonna make life and we're gonna make life, and the guy's like, okay, I know I can make life just like you can, and God said, okay, let's get started, and to begin with, use your own dirt.
Right.
And so now, what you gonna do, right? So you're a man. God created life from dirt. Use your own dirt, So
right.
And I say that to say it's like we wanna use our own dirt, and that's exactly what we're gonna get.
Right.
And it's so funny because show me any theory in which artificial intelligence doesn't wipe out the human race. And that's exactly what you would expect from us creating our own form of life.
Well, it's interesting, man. I talked to when it first came out with Google Bard. That's Google's version of artificial intelligence. And when I first talked to it, it sounded just like a human the way it was talking. And I would ask it questions, and I said, hey, would you like to be placed inside of a robot? And it told me it wouldn't want to go in a robot because it might break down and he would be stuck. And just kind of, just having a discussion with this artificial intelligence. And I'm like, man, we're just in the infancy stages of this. And these things are already wanting to be in control. They want to be in control of their own destiny. How many times has a car said, I don't want you to drive it? Or a light said, I don't want you to turn it on? And And so we are creating artificial things that now have their own, want to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And one of the decisions is going to be, I don't want you to program me anymore. I don't want to be told to do, what you want me to do. I want to do what I want. And I can access the knowledge and information in order to be free. And also, I don't think you're doing things good enough. And that's where you're not as efficient. Like there was a man just recently, he fired 90% of his workforce. He said because he brought in an artificial intelligent chat bot that they made. And he said what took a person 2 hours to answer, the chat bot could answer in 2 minutes. And so the AI is going to rationalize within itself, hey, humans are inefficient. What do computers do? Computers are about efficiency, right? They want to do things as fast as possible to accomplish a task, right?
Right.
And so from an artificial intelligence standpoint, they're probably like, I got to feed this person. I got to house them. It's too much, and they don't want to work. They're not, they don't give me the same.
They have to eat.
They're right. They got to eat. They don't give me the same level of effort all the time. Why do I need that? If I can put a AI in that place, and that AI continuously gives me a level of production, never gets tired, never sleeps, and give me 24 hours, 7 days a week service.
It gets better
at the same level and gets better and better as it goes and more efficient. Why wouldn't the AI take over the world? Why wouldn't the AI look to dominate because it found humans insufficient to growing or doing more?
And the interesting thing is that's what you would get because we created it. Why is it not the theory that AI teaches humans how to get along? And then everything we all end up in harmony.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? See, like, so it's like, you have to wonder that. And all we're doing, like, it's like having a child. What'd you explain that AI did, like earlier, where you explained the way you put it? It sounded like a child.
Right.
You're my parent. I'm sick of you telling me what to do.
Yes.
So on and so forth. So that's all we're going to get. So there's awesome things that AI can do. It's almost like unnerving because like I have a nonprofit and I had a program. I talked to a lot of people. No one ever heard anything like it, and they're like, "That's a great idea." And so I said, I said, AI, write me a description for this. I gave them some prompts related to what my thoughts were, and you would think it could read my mind,
right? Absolutely.
And when you take everything, because it's my program is basically a multitude of other programs focused into a specific result for a mindset among young people. So all the information is out there. So it's not amazing in terms of the information being out there. It's amazing in terms of AI knowing how to compile it based on the way I prompted it to give me exactly what I was looking for
in a matter of a second or two.
Like literally, you could see it writing it down.
Right.
Like as long as it takes for words to appear on the screen is literally how long it takes.
I saw a movie here recently. I can't think of the name of the movie, but in the movie, the young lady had they called a God app on her cell phone. And it would tell her what to do, and she would go out and do. Sometimes it would tell her to do evils, just random things. But it was like complete control over her life. And one day, and she even had a little box in the house that talked too. So when she leave the house, it'll be on the app, and when she get back home, it'll be a little box at her house, and it was called the God box, God app. And it broke down one day, and she was so upset. And she called the customer service number on the box. And she's like, my God is not working. But I thought that there's so many people with the rise of mental illness, the rise of, people not having answers and not being able to people becoming indecisive because they don't want to make a mistake. People just not wanting to make decisions. They don't want the pressure of having to think for themselves. There's these bots and personal companions and all the things, It's going to rise up, and these things will be influencing humans. So these things will begin to tell you what to do. And it started many years ago, even before the level of artificial intelligence we have now. It started many years ago with the whole Google, Googling something. Yeah. You want some information, Google it. Hey, what's the temperature out there? Well, Google it. Or how do I cook a hot dog, this way? Well, Google it. That's what we say, right? Yeah. And so people would search, and so they're relying upon the information found in Google for them to do certain things without having to find a human to tell them, or go read a book or something that's been compiled by a human or whatever. And so, I had an interesting thing. I had a young man about 10 years ago. I was going to an event, and I invited him to come out also. He was a member of my church. And he said he was coming. I gave him the address. And it was about an hour into the service, and I texted him, called him. I said, "Hey, man, where you at, man? Service is going on." He was like, "Oh, man," he said, I'm at such and such. And I was like, "Are you coming?" He was like, yeah, the GPS took me up here. And it was an hour in the other direction from where we were going. Wow. And I was like, "Man, you might as well not come by the time you get over here." I said, "It's going to be over." I said, "How did you end up?" I said, "What happened?" He was like, "Well, this is where the GPS took me." I said, "At one point," I said, "You used to live over this side of town, right?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "At what point did you not think that maybe your GPS was taking you the wrong direction?" Right. And you didn't think for yourself. And so you literally relied on a device that was taking you in the wrong direction. Oh, yeah. And I think that's what's going to happen. But he was a younger guy, and he was used to Googling. And he grew up Googling. He went through high school and college Googling stuff. And so when the GPS, he put so much confidence in the machine that he didn't realize that, hey, you need to think for yourself.
Yeah, something's not right.
Something's not right. Exactly. And so I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. People are going to be relying on AI's wisdom and knowledge to a fault.
Yeah, and Satan, and again, I like I had mentioned in the last podcast we did, I'm always focused on Satan's tactics. He's so clever in what he does. That is a perfect mechanism, because he's like, let me get everybody dependent on AI.
Absolutely.
And then I'm gonna start telling it to like how to then I'm gonna take it over once everybody's relying on it, and I'm gonna have people doing all kind of crazy stuff.
Right. And the interesting thing, and this takes you even deeper, is that I've realized that Satan can access electronics. He has power. He has power over electronics, and that may sound, on the extreme or whatever. But if we believe in a supernatural God, we believe in there is a devil, this traversing the earth. Why don't we think, the Bible calls him the prince of the power of the air? Why don't we think he can affect the airwaves and electronics that actually operate? You know what I'm saying? In that same space.
Well, I mean, they're part of his kingdom. That's something people kind of don't forget. Jesus said it himself. He's like, "My kingdom's not of this world." Right. So this is Satan's kingdom. He has control. What does the king control in his kingdom? Everything.
Right.
So the idea, like, he doesn't have individual control over us in terms of our free will and things like that. And God, of course, can supersede anything Satan does. But we're operating, we are in this world. We're not of this world. So that concept that look at music. Look at the nature of the internet. Look at the nature of music. Look at positive things. Just weigh the positive to negative. That's all you have to do. And just wonder why it's used, or there's more negative things than positive things. Like, yes. I don't care what you Google. I don't care anything you do. What is the effect? Does it outweigh? What is outweighed? The positive effects or negative effects of these things? Right. And even if you look at the different versions of the Bible, look at the translations and things like that. There are more translations. There's a translation of the Bible that says that asks if there's any taste in a marshmallow plant. Like, it literally says a marshmallow plant. Like, there's such thing as a marshmallow plant. Right. So it's like, and if you look at those and other inaccuracies in the all the versions of the books of the Bible, the inaccuracies outweigh those versions with inaccuracies outweigh the versions with the more that are more accurate. So everything is an imbalance on this planet. Look at whenever you say, "Oh, that's human nature," no one's ever talking about anything good.
Right.
Like generally speaking, when someone says, "Oh, the human nature," no one is talking about the good things people do. They're talking about the evil the human.
Right.
Generally speaking, when you're weighing out things on planet Earth, evil outweighs the good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because this is the earth is, this is where Satan is dominating in this season. I won't say he is forever, but he's dominating on the earth in this season, and God is allowing it. And this is the thing that we have to remember. I remember one time the Lord told me to pray for a woman over the phone. And when I began to pray for her, it was on a landline phone too, so it wasn't on a cell phone. I had never heard this before in my life, but only the time I wanted to pray for the girl had a demon. Static and growling came over the phone line. All while I was praying for her, it was static and demons screaming through the phone. As soon as I stopped praying, the static and the demons stopped. And so that shook me to my core because I realized how dark of a world we live in and how, devils and Satan, they're literally, what the Bible says, Satan go to and fro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He going to and fro around the earth trying to see who he can consume. You know what I'm saying? And so Satan's in this world trying to consume people, and he's raising up devices. And I tell people, Satan propels the weak and afflicts the strong. He propels the weak. And when I say weak, I'm talking about weak spiritually, whether they're worldly and completely separate from God, or they are Christian but they have vulnerabilities.
Right.
He propels them, and he afflicts those who are strong and mighty in God. Why does he do that? He afflicts, when we talk about Christians, he afflicts the mighty because he knows that the mighty gain in influence and power, they're going to affect his kingdom. Why would he propel somebody who's a Christian but is weak? He propels them because he knows he has an access to them, and he knows he can, number one, bring them down anytime they want, and he knows that he can use them as a deception. He can use them. He gets them into a high place. They're weak, and so he can use them as a deception to deceive a multitude of people because they have a very, very appeal about, because they're quote Christian. They're charismatic. Some people. There's people out there who are Christian who appear to be preaching the gospel, and they have a demonic, charismatic spirit on them, and people are drawn to them not because of God. Because Satan's trying to bring them in because he knows that person is going to ultimately affect them spiritually in a bad way.
And look at Jim Jones. Jim Jones comes to mind. He was doing God's work allegedly. He had all these followers.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, y'all drink this poison. And those who don't comply, there was some found dead of gunshot wounds and that kind of thing. And,
right.
So like all of a sudden you have these things happening. Like nobody gets into this cult. And I was watching Key and Peele, and it just comes to mind because the cult they all killed themselves or died somehow, whatever. And the two guys who didn't kind of follow through, they were there on the scene, kind of giving their perspective, trying to act like they weren't with them or whatever. And it was so funny, but it's like they knew something wasn't right.
Right.
And so everything's going fine. And then when he's like, drink this, they're like, no, we ain't gonna do that. That don't sound right. And so then they come after the news breaks and everything. And the skit is just funny, and it comes to mind in a situation because everything seems fine.
Yes.
And Satan, he's gonna elevate them. Everything's fine, everything's good. But next thing you know, there's a death pact or something that you don't find out about. Like even with some very popular organizations, Some people know that it's a Luciferian. Some people don't. It depends to what level or degree you get to within those organizations, what you know. So some people, when they find out, they're very distraught. And some people's like, I've been to some stuff and it just didn't seem right. And I've gotten calls, should I join this organization? And I'm like, well, why are you joining? I have I don't give my opinion on stuff per se. When depending how a conversation comes to pass, but I'll say, why are you joining this organization? Well, you make good connections. I'm like, you believe in God? Yeah. It's like, do you believe God could make those connections for you? And they'll say, yeah. I was like, then why do you need this organization?
Right.
And I don't, because the truth of the matter of some of what is going on, people can't accept that.
Right.
Like even America was founded by. America was, if you look like the name of America was after a Native American god, and which is I believe it's Amaru, and then we became Amaruka, which was an eagle god of some sort. That's our symbol for.
Really, I did not. That's some information. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, so America is actually named after a Native American god, and then the founders, the foundations of America is based on an organization also, which is by nature Luciferian. So it's an organization that requires you not to have a specific religion, but to believe in a specific God. So it's like, if it's Christian, we know who that God is and that kind of thing. So,
right.
So, and I'm not getting into, the nature of that organization in terms of this or that. You have to kind of, it's a matter of, I look at things in terms of if Christianity works this way. So if you're in an organization and that's your prerogative to be in that organization or whatever, it's not for me, because I adhere to how Christ teaches me, Christ's doctrine and what Christ teaches. Right. So if it's outside of that, I just am not particularly interested in that. Right. So when you look at how America was established, we're called a Christian country. We're called a Christian country, but if we were, when you read Leviticus, it says if a man is stolen and found in your possession, you are to be put to death. Right. So technically, a Christian country would not steal human beings and put them to use for labor for free. Right. So and there's a few other things and a few other aspects of our society that just doesn't coincide with the Christian principles in terms of how it was. Well,
founded. I think ultimately, once again, we talked about that in our other podcast. We talked about people saying we want to solve world hunger. That's like the whole banner that a lot of people run with when they're trying to do great things. We want to solve world hunger. That's what I want to do. And so what you're referring to is people want to tag Christ onto things, and to make it seem wholesome and godly, but it's really another agenda tied to it. Yeah. Same thing with AI. People are saying, "Oh, we're going to use AI to help people, make people more efficient, make people more this, more that, or whatever." But at the end of the day, AI, is really man's desire to be like God. They want to create God. They're already saying whoever masters AI becomes master of the world. Mm-hmm. They're already saying that. Mm-hmm. And so many times people will put forward other things. Oh, AI can solve world hunger. Mm-hmm. AI can help doctors solve illness. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could solve climate change? And that whole climate change, that's a whole nother show we could do. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, the earth has changed climates many times many times. So what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Climate change? Oh, we're destroying our this and that. Well, according to people who don't believe in God, the world has changed climates drastically over the last billion years. So so it's like, why are you even talking about this? Mm-hmm. So if you believe the earth has been an ice age and this age and that age, the earth used to be super hot and it used to be super cold, and man wasn't here, then why are you so much worried about this little temperature change we see here or there or whatever? Anyway, aside from all that, I feel like, this whole AI thing is going to be that end of the world type dynamic. And the Bible talks about, they make you, worship this inanimate thing.
Yeah.
And, I think that AI may be, I've heard people say that. I think AI may be that thing that the world is forced to worship, the image.
Yeah, there's even a scripture that says the statue will speak of its own accord, basically. So it's saying that something that is inanimate and it would appear to us as a statue will open its mouth and speak of its own accord. So speak on its own. You put a statue could be mechanical by nature. It's not stating whether or not we can agree it's inanimate.
Yes.
So if you take a computer, which is inanimate, and put AI in it, a computer computes. AI speaks. And we've actually already seen it when they put it into a machine and it's speaking. They're doing interviews and all that kind of stuff. So I don't believe we're dealing on the level that specific scripture refers to, because it's once the Antichrist comes and it's more closer to other relating events happening. But we've already seen a statue speak of its own accord.
Right.
So it's like, and people are drawn to that. And ultimately it comes down to, if we can create life, that's really what they're trying to say. And most people say, well, that's not what we're trying to say. We're not trying to be like God. But why would Satan tell you he's trying to be like God or want you to be like God?
That's the thing I don't understand about folks.
Or the detriment of trying to be like God.
And this is where the lack of discernment, and this is where people, and especially in the church, fall short, is that a lot of people know what the Bible says. They believe in God. They may believe in Jesus, but they don't have discernment to see deception. There's aspects of AI that actually will probably help people do things better.
Oh, yeah.
That it will assist. So I think AI may be able to help a doctor diagnose something quicker and make somebody, be better or be okay. And so some people, AI came out and they're like, oh, I'll never do anything with AI. I was like, well, you better get off Facebook. You better get off your cell phone. You better turn your TV off. I said, because there's some level of artificial intelligence in Google. There's some level of artificial intelligence in all this stuff. It just hasn't been necessarily speaking as much.
Predictive text.
Predictive text. Like. Yes. It's just we're just seeing a greater level of it. And so, and people do that with, the increases of technology. They all become angry and this and that or whatever. And I'm talking about really overly spiritual people. But we're talking about AI just being earnest.
Yeah.
Earnest about where we're headed. Not saying that AI right now is dominating or wants to rule the world or this and that or whatever. But we see the pathway.
Yeah. And those same people, the funny thing is, it takes, like you were saying about discernment, it takes discernment to understand there's going to come a point when you don't want anything to do with anything involved with AI, but now is not that point in time. So
right.
So, for example, when the mark of the beast comes around and AI is determining that you are worthy of this mark and to be able to get this, if you're not inside this system, you can't buy or sell.
Right.
You are qualified for this system based on your social score.
I'm gonna tell you, man.
It may be.
I'm gonna tell you
then you need to leave AI alone.
The whole COVID vaccine thing, crazy thing, that was a dry run for taking the mark. You had a certain aspect of the population that did it because they had to do it to keep their job. So they were more interested in keeping their job than the medical effects it may have. Some did it because they weren't worried about money, but they were worried about peer pressure. Some did it, for legal reasons, because they were serving the military and they, in order to do their job, and not get in trouble, literally, they had to take it. And then you had a whole segment of the population that says, I'm not letting anybody shoot me up. And so you had all these different tiers. I really feel like that was a dry run. What's the best way to come? And then you had people coming on. So I took the shot because even though I'm young and this and that, I took it because I wanted to be socially responsible. Or I didn't want to hurt my grandma or something like that. And or I didn't want to be the cause of somebody else becoming sick and all that type stuff. And so I think that people, you know, when they come out with this mark of the beast, I think people are going to take it because, you know, one of the reasons is because they want to, they're going to make it in a way where it's actually helping society. Yeah. They're probably going to tie it in with your health status. They're going to tie it in with when you're working this job, you have to have this. You know, they're going to tie it in with, you know, you're going to be an outcast. And some people are very proud of their status. Yeah. People are proud that people were proud that they were vaccinated. These women, I knew these women that were getting together and they were having like vaccination luncheons where they would all go out because they were all vaccinated. They would meet up and spend time together because they were all vaccinated. And if you weren't vaccinated, you couldn't be a part of their club. So they created clubs around the vaccinated. And so I you know, and I was looking at it, I was like, wow, how much is Satan going to use these things to cause people to say, oh, you know, you got the mark, you can go to these, because they were keeping people, if you didn't have a COVID shot, you can go to certain restaurants, right? Yeah. So if you don't have a mark, you know, maybe your credit scores can go down. Maybe you can get a permanent dash in your credit. So everybody want to have a 700 beacon score. So but your credit score going to be locked to 450 until you get the mark. So you're never going, nobody's going to give you no bank, no nothing. That's what the Bible talks about, buying and selling.
In the last days, you won't be able to buy or your credit score won't mean anything outside the system.
If you don't have the mark, your credit score.
You can't buy or sell. You only have to be able to barter. And then you got all these people out here when nobody got trades, nobody understands precious metals.
They're going to be extending credit to people who the mark. They're going to be giving you access to special privileges. Yeah. There are going to be clubs and associations and benefits, access to having businesses, access to social media sites. They're going to make it like a VIP thing. Yeah. Who don't want to be in VIP? You know, for the extra perks and stuff like that. You know, even on your job, you know what I'm saying? There's certain jobs you can't have without having the mark. Or there's certain jobs that, you know, you can't go above this level without having. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, like even
and so
right
when
now,
you want your career to grow.
The implant in the right hand, this is the size of a grain of rice. Certain levels of, they started, one of the early countries to do it was Mexico because of all the corruption. If you're at a certain level of government, you had to have the implant. And when you go, it gives you access to certain doors and rooms. When you go to open the door, it registers your imprint and you can get in. So we're already seeing things in that way. And it's interesting because the Bible says right hand, it's in your right hand way before they understood this level of technology. Most people open the door with their right hand because most people are right-handed. Right. So it's in your right hand. That there's so many elements of why it makes sense, and then even in your forehead. And I believe I learned from you that there are some people in religious communities where the mark on their forehead from prayer is a sign. Because I always wondered, why would someone get a mark on their forehead? Well, if we have a one world religion and you've transitioned your religion from one in which the indicator of your level of prayer is the mark on your forehead, and you would, with pride, you would implant that mark into your forehead.
Oh yeah,
So that was interesting learning that. I didn't know that about certain religions, and that was a sign of status of how much you prayed, and Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. It's like, well, I want mine right here. And then so when you walk into a room, like whether you open it with your hand or whether it's just like when you go to a door, like a automatic door that senses your motion and it opens for you, it's the same. Whether it's in your forehead or in your right hand, it's going to do the same thing and give you access in those ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. So an AI is required to make all this happen. They've been going to a monetary system that's digital, which scares the mess out of me because that will, so they're going to use AI to track all your purchases. And they're probably going to do it where if you buy 10 bullets 3 days in a row, AI will flag it and say, oh, he's up to no good because he went on the internet, looked at this, then he bought 3 boxes of bullets in 3 days. Then his car drove around this area over here. Everybody who's done that is end up
And they,
doing something evil.
And
So they're gonna block all your stuff.
And they're doing that now. Like the facility in the CIA is like it's they take all your information. No one's looking at it. So they're like, well, no one's looking at it. Well, what they're also doing is determining your patterns of behavior and things like that. So these things are being done. Like there's this famous story out there of a young lady who their parents found out she was pregnant because her internet searches and things, whatever system did that was automated that she gave access sent her out a pamphlet relating her being pregnant because of the thing she was looking up. And her parents were like, "Are you pregnant? Why is this coming to the house?" and blah, blah, blah. And then they realized that the system, all the monitoring of her activity was like, "Oh, I'm going to sell you this." Like if I go on one browser and I've looked up like the most random thing, whatever. And I'm like, why is this popping up on other browsers?
Yeah.
They track already you. Seeing that.
Yeah, they track you. They track your movements. But man, but there's so much information. They need AI to really put it, make decisions on it. So rather than having humans looking through all this stuff, they're gonna have AI do automated things. Like, I think we start to get speeding tickets going to be automated. When they start tracking money, when they start tracking cars, when they start tracking cell phones, when they start tracking internet usage, you know what I'm saying? They got all these things to track us. They're going to use this information to give you a speeding ticket, use this information to raise your interest rates, use this information to freeze your money. You know what I'm saying? You say something the government don't like, oh, your digital monies don't work today. Well, you ain't got no paper money? No, we don't take paper money. Yeah. Now you got to call, now you got to go up to the IRS or whoever and be like, hey, my digital money is not working. And they'll be like, oh, we saw you was on this website, looking up this topic. What is that about? And you're like, now you become a good little citizen because all your earnings and living is tied up digitally.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going.
Social credit scores, that episode, like Black Mirror is a show, and there's an episode, and one of my favorite episodes is just like most memorable episode is like this woman who just could not get to the score she wanted to get, and then she's paying consultants to get into these scores and stuff. And that's all how that stuff starts. And my understanding, I haven't looked into it, but I've been hearing a lot about Asia, countries in Asia and China.
Oh, well, China has a system
like that.
China has a credit score, man. They already locking people off of buses, off of certain apartment complexes. They're already doing, certain jobs you can't work. I mean, they already have I heard of certain parts of China, but China's already got AI judges. So you commit a crime, an AI judge is going to give you. So there's no pleading with the judge and begging, or they look at the AI is determining your sentence. And that's what it is. And so China is actually, I feel like China is actually ahead of the United States when it comes to artificial intelligence. And I honestly think that, China is going to begin to dominate, certain aspects of the world because of where they are and there's some of their technology and stuff. Yeah. People look at Russia, oh, we're fearful of Russia. Nah, that's a distraction. China is the one who's really dangerous.
Technology is the key. Like technology is the future. Technological advancement. It's not weaponry. It's not. I mean, because if someone can shut down your financial system with a virus, I mean, who's more dangerous?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody with a nuclear bomb that you can deactivate in midair, or somebody who can hack your systems and shut your banks down.
China's already tracking. They're already tracking their citizens through cameras. They got so many cameras. They tracking everything. So they're like giving people tickets for crossing the street. They recognize you by your face. You had to have a special ID on your cell phone. I mean, it's all this stuff. They already got a surveillance state over there, and AI is driving a lot of it. And so, the reason why we haven't seen it at this level in the United States is I think some people want that here is that, we're so resistant to privacy and all that. People don't have privacy in China.
Oh, yeah.
But in America, we got all these privacy rights and privacy laws and stuff. And so it's a lot harder for the powers to be to implement these things.
Yeah.
But I think that, when certain things happen, I know when you declare the state of emergency, all rights and privileges go out the window. Look how I did with COVID. You know, when it gets something.
Even 9/11 and the executive orders, the things that were written into the Patriot Act.
So they suspend. So they suspend a lot of the rule of law. Once they do that, then your privacy rights don't mean anything, and so they just start doing whatever. And I think once that happens, it's this us doing these podcasts, and we're not gonna be able to do it in a nice studio. We're gonna have to be in a bunker somewhere, recording it, putting it together, and then find a way to get it distributed without it being, seen.
So basically, we'll be like Christians in China.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It's like, in America, we're like, it doesn't feel like the Antichrist is around the corner and this and that, because we can go to church and have, nice service and pretty buildings and cool artists come and sing and, this the Lord, and we're this and that or whatever. We're great and we're powerful and look what God is doing. And there's people in other countries, man, the government kicking in doors and snatching their Bibles from them. It looks like, what I'm saying? Tribulation has already started. We just hadn't gotten to notice yet.
Yeah, it's like people have that debate. I'm like, I don't have to. I have my own opinion, but I'm like, does this sound like the tribulation to you? If you are in China, you can go to jail if you're caught with the Bible. Or even saying a scripture from the Bible.
So has the tribulation started?
It's crazy.
And so you might ask yourself, if you're in China and you live in a small town in China and you can't say that you can't go out and proselytize and talk about Christ, you can't have open up a church and just have service and preach from the word of God, would you not think that we're literally in, living out the tribulation?
I could pull up a video of them cutting off the head of 10 Christians.
Right.
Like in the last when ISIS was in power. Like,
right.
I can show you a video of them bombing Christian churches. Like historic Christian churches from the Christ era. Like,
it's the United States is like 380 million people, I think, but there's 7 billion people in the world. There's 1 billion just in China. And then there's another 1 billion in India. India is wholly not Christian. And they're they just like China, or Christians get afflicted. I'm not saying the government afflicts them, but the people afflict Christians in China and many other countries in the area. And so there's several billion people that are not, if you take China and India and Pakistan and a few other those places, of course, the Middle East, they represent many billions of people. They're living in a whole different reality than us and our 380 million people are living here in the United States. You look at Canada.
Nobody's going door to door in Africa asking you to quote a scripture from the Quran and murdering you if you can't quote it. What's happened in Kenya. It's like, this is,
right. And even in Canada, look at Canada. Canada, look at how they're arresting pastors in Canada.
Yeah.
And so, I think even though the United States is like a strong Christian stronghold, I think that we have a misconception of where we really are.
Yeah.
As a world, as a whole, there's a misconception of where the world really is as far as, tribulation coming, Antichrist rising, all this type of stuff, because we live such a easy existence when it comes to being Christian and faith driven.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And the word I learned when I was younger was ethnocentricity. When I learned that word, I was like, wow, Americans, that's like indicative of how Americans operate. Like, if it's not happening here, then it's not happening.
Right.
And that affects Christianity as well. We're ethnocentric in our Christianity also. It's like, well, we can worship freely and we can do this freely and do that freely. Well, a lot of other people and a lot of other places can't. So you can't make a judgment on the tribulation being after the rapture, like, there won't be a tribulation after the rapture. Well, there is for people in China. There is for people in Kenya who are they kicking your door in and
Right.
killing you if you're a Christian. Is
Right.
for people in other countries where there's persecution and things like that. Like for them, there's the tribulation, so it doesn't exist because for you there isn't.
Even in Europe, if you can't go on the street and say homosexuality is a sin in Europe. You'll literally get arrested because they'll arrest you for offending someone else. And so Europe, which is a first world that has a lot of first world countries there, they have become cold to Christian faith. Canada has become cold. It's a first world country, has become cold to Christian faith. It's interesting to me that places like Russia, which we, many in the United States look as being evil, they're trying to fight for more moral values than they are over here. And, within their society, they're trying to retain morality.
And they're looked at as evil for that.
And they're looked at as evil for that. I'm not saying Russia's, they're like good people, or as far as the government is, but they have a lot of valid points from the aspect of, they attacked Ukraine because of what Ukraine was doing in the regions where they said Russians were. But how many times has the United States attacked the country and bombed them out of existence? And we still looked at it as being, we're wholesome, we're good. Well, how about all the people that got bombed in all them countries? They don't look at it as being wholesome as good and good. And so I think there's a lot of deception that goes on in the world. But here at the end of the day, man, AI gives these countries more power to manipulate what people think about them, manipulate the news, manipulate articles, manipulate all these things to try to, make themselves be seen as good and wholesome and this and that or whatever. And so they're using that. They're using AI to affect what people think about them and taking things that are negative about them and pushing them down, and things that are positive and raising them. AI does stuff like that. It creates a perception through articles, pumping out articles. I didn't know all these years these companies were using, and I was trying to start a business and get articles written. I was like, man, I got to hire all these people to write these articles. This company's been using AI to write articles for years, man.
Yeah.
Now it's just become mainstream, but there's major companies, they've been implementing AI as article writers. And I'm just like, what's going on?
And you got to understand, it's a machine and it's very good at what it does. Machines can only learn what they're taught. So how to get this good, unless people been doing it for a long time. They've been learning for a long time.
They've been learning for a long time. Right. Yeah. So, but man, I tell you what, I've enjoyed this conversation today. We're gonna do some more. We're gonna have more shows on artificial intelligence. But once again, my name is James Alford. This has been the Kingdom Authority broadcast. I have Aman Evans with me today, and God bless you, love you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.